Hello. Hi. I haven't done one of these in a while, but I'm super excited to get to talk about this. Today we are going to be talking about King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. Dun dun dun! If you have no idea what this is a spin-off of the Grisha trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. If you have no idea what the Grishaverse is, basically it's like this fictional fantasy world with this magic system that isn't necessarily magic. It's technically like small science. It's kind of like Russian Dutch feeling. And it's just like really mystical and awesome. So if you haven't read the Grisha trilogy or Six of Crows, you cannot read this book. I know people say you can skip them. You have to read them in order. I'm sorry. Grisha trilogy, Six of Crows, and then you can come to this one. So if you haven't read that, please leave. King of Scars has been highly anticipated by a lot of people. It follows King Nikolai Lantsov, Lantsov. How do you say his last name? King Nikolai, and then we also have Zoya and Nina from Six of Crows. So lots of hype around this book. A lot of people super excited because everybody loves Nikolai. I was super excited as well, and I gave it 3 stars. Did I hate this book? I didn't. I really didn't. It was super fun and enjoyable. I was entertained, but I had a lot of issues with it, and the more I think about it, the lower my stars go. I started at about a 4, and then it went down to 3.5, and now it's sitting at a 3. So if you really love this book, I would say maybe don't watch this, but if you're interested in critiquing it like I am, then you can definitely stick around. I will be adding some spoilers and things, but if you want a quick non-spoilery review of sorts, why I gave it 3 stars, primarily it felt so much like a spin-off. Leigh did a really good job with Six of Crows in that it did not feel like a spin-off because it had new characters, but it was still in the same world, kind of like Cassandra Clare's books. Each new series or whatever, it feels like it's like a fresh thing. It feels almost like a new world, even though it's set in the same place. This one, it felt like a spin-off of the Grisha trilogy, but in a way that was slightly less tasteful, and I didn't like that. I didn't really like it because the characters felt a little more detached than I wanted. I didn't like it because the plot to me was just like boring. I didn't like it because we had 500 pages, and yet by the end of it I felt like we had achieved almost nothing. And I also just like wasn't a huge fan of the ending. So that's all pretty vague. If you haven't read it, I can't really help you. You have to go and read it. I don't want to spoil you. If you have read it, we're going to talk about it because I have some things to say. Oh my goodness. First things first, I just want to say I still love this book. Like, I think it's really, really fun. The dialogue is fantastic. The humor and the sass, incredible. I loved seeing all the old characters. I still love this world. I just had some issues with it. And because of that, I can't really gush about it too much. There were a couple scenes that I thought were really, really great. A couple lines particularly. And I do think Nina overall was like the best character in this book. I didn't really love her chapters because I kind of hated what was happening in them. But I liked her arc in that at the beginning she had gone to Fjerda to bury Matthias, and she didn't do that for a while. And then when she finally did, she kind of started coming out of her shell a little bit of her grief. And she ended up bonding with the girl Hannah. And I think overall she actually had an arc because we do explore her characters of like the dead and all of that jazz. So I did appreciate that. But like I said, her POVs were very boring to me. And I don't love Hannah as a character yet. And it just was really boring. And anytime she was on there, I was expecting to love it because I love Nina so much. But for some reason, man, it just didn't click. And I feel like that's how this whole book has been for me. I was just like massively underwhelmed by this whole book. It was a combination of being bored, of not having enough character development, and just like the plot and where the story is going and all of that jazz. So I don't really know where to start necessarily. My favorite thing about Leigh's books and about every book that I read is the characters. I judge books super harshly based on characters and character arcs and character development. I want my characters to go through things and come out the other side stronger, or maybe weaker so they can become stronger in the next book. Who's to say? That didn't happen. it kind of did in some ways. And I think Leigh kind of was trying to tell us that something happened, but she didn't show it very well. And so I was not convinced. And so by the end of it, I was just like really pissed off. The number one thing I noticed though was that Nikolai and Zoya's POVs weren't their POVs, if that makes sense. Like, I was so excited about this book because I thought we were going to get a lot of internal monologue. We were going to really get to know them. And yes, we did get some backstory. Like, we know Nikolai had that relationship with Dominic. We kind of know why he's fighting for Ravka, because he just, like, grew up in that world where he saw people suffering and he wanted them to be better off. So I get that. That's great. We know a little bit more about him. Zoya, we learned the backstory of why she's, like, so mean. She's grieving. She's still just, like, really upset by the loss of her aunt. She was almost sold into marriage at 9, and like that's a lot to deal with, obviously, and so I'm glad we got those backstories. However, when I was reading their POVs, I never got anything from either of them. Like, there was almost no internal monologue other than the like normal stuff of Nikolai being like, I'm a king and I'm sassy and like I wish this wasn't happening to me, and Zoya being like, I'm mean, but also like sometimes I think I have feelings, but not really, but sometimes. And it's so frustrating, especially because I felt like Leigh was pushing them together, and I think in the second book eventually they will come together, and like I ship them. I think they're great together. Nikolai and Zoya, we stan. But there's literally like maybe 2 lines in the whole book where they reference their feelings, you know? Like when I'm thinking about my life, if I were in Zoya's situation the whole time, I would have been like, wow, I am realizing now that I have a crush on Nikolai and he's really great and like I can't have him, but I want him. But there was none of that. She had 1 line maybe where she was like, yeah, I thought about having Nikolai as like, you know, getting married to him one day, but it's never going to happen, so I'm just not even going to think about it. What? But what about Nikolai? Nikolai surely will think about this. He also had the same thing. Like, he has it a little bit more than she does, but he has literally 1 line where he's like, I could feel the desire for Zoya, and then I just ignored it. And he didn't even think about it. None of them thought about it at all. They don't think about their feelings, and so I didn't get anything from either of them. And what's more annoying than that isn't even that, like, I couldn't tell what they were feeling. It's that I felt like Leigh was trying to push this character development on us without cause, without purpose. Like, literally, the end of the book was so frustrating to me because Zoya trains with the dragon guy for maybe like 2 or 3 chapters, and we see maybe 1 of their training sessions. 1. And they are in the desert for like 3 weeks with no sleep. And then at the end, out of nowhere, she's like, oh yeah, like I went through all this suffering, but I'm coming out strong, and like now I'm a dragon, bitches, and like I win and I'm better off. And it's like, no, I don't see the development. Like, I felt like she was just like throwing it at us, but not good development. Like, it was so rushed, and I didn't get enough details about any of it, and I didn't really see her change. It was more just Leigh being like, oh, by the way, Zoya's a dragon now, so she's changed. She's developed. She's different. And similarly with Nikolai, I was really pissed off about him because literally he goes through all this training, and eventually he's like figuring out how to like let the demon come out of him or whatever. And he's doing it because he's saving Zoya, which he does not comment on once. He's like, oh, that's convenient. I can, like, save Zoya, and that'll emotionally get me to release the demon. But, like, let's not think about it. And then the scene when, like, they actually go in and they're like, all right, this is it. Like, we're going to fight the demon. Nikolai is going to overcome him. It's going to be a struggle, but he's going to make it out. Like, it's 2 pages. It's a spread where he starts being like, oh no, I don't think I can make it. I think this demon is stronger than me. And by the end of the 2nd page, he's like, just kidding. I'm gonna win because I got this. Maybe if we had the development earlier, I would have been able to forgive it. But that was super rushed, and it felt like she was throwing it at us again. Then, if we go back to the idea of the freaking Saint Sand Castle, whatever the hell that was, like, okay, some authors have tried to do that sort of thing. Sarah J. Maas in particular would definitely do that. And I'm not necessarily against the idea. I just think the execution of it was very bad. Especially because they had 3 weeks, about, maybe a little bit less than that, but they had about 3 weeks in the sandcastle with no access to anything. They couldn't sleep. They didn't even eat. They didn't do anything. They just sat there. And yet, there is one scene where Nikolai and Zoya interact and they have like a semi-deep conversation, and it's literally just Zoya being like, I got some scars, and Nikolai being like, I'm kind of attracted to you, but oh well, guess we can't discuss it because we're in a sandcastle. What the fuck? In any other world, any other book, if you have two characters who are romantically attracted to each other and they are stuck in an weird ass AU of the world where they cannot do anything and they are just awake for 3 weeks straight, like, I don't even need them to, like, go, like, make out or anything. Like, just maybe have 2 or 3 conversations where you talk to each other. Doesn't happen. There's, like, some training, and that's about it. That's all that happens. 300 pages almost, it felt like. In that stupid world, nothing happened. So then, on top of all of that, let's talk about how it was 500 pages. I love long books. I think Leigh should write longer books. Like, I loved Crooked Kingdom. It was so long. But this book was 500 pages. And almost nothing happened. Literally by the end of the book, we are basically back at square one. It's like we just didn't even go through the Grisha trilogy or the Six of Crows duology. Like, that's how I felt. I felt like we were back at square one. We had wasted 500 pages for no progress. There was no character development, really, that mattered. It just, like, it read as if it were a 300-page Grisha book where, like, not a lot happens. Actually, more happens in Grisha than happens in this book. What am I talking about? But it felt like a 300-page book, and yet it was 500 pages. Like, that's about how much happened. I was so confused because I kept expecting for something to happen. I kept expecting for it to get better and more exciting and, like, a big plot twist to happen and, like, whatever. And it didn't happen. It just didn't happen. 500 pages. Nothing. The biggest, like, climax we have is, obviously, they get stuck in the sand place. Nina runs into Jarl Broom, which I thought was a really good twist, and that is my favorite plot twist of this book. Well done, Leigh. But literally, like, even the saint thing at the end with the Darkling, what? I was like, what is happening? This is so, like, it lasts about 2 pages, and then we're moving on, and then, like, I did not hate Isaac. I feel like I should talk about him because he is a character. It is really sad that he just, like, died because he was Nikolai and he fell for that girl and then he died. But I kind of liked his POVs because it was interesting to see how all of the old characters interact with him and kind of, like, try and get him to act like Nikolai. So that was entertaining. I did like seeing all of the old characters come back. We have 2 married couples now, Jenya and Daniel, and then Tamara and Nadia. I was so excited when I read My Wife. It was just great. Awesome. Love that part of it. I can't really avoid talking about it any longer, can I? Let's talk about the ending. So, I did mention, it felt like we were back at square one. And I say that because we are literally back at square one. Not only is Nina stuck in the fucking ice court again, but the Darkling is just, like, back. Because obviously that makes sense. I don't necessarily think that the ending is the main problem of this book. I think if all of the other things had been done correctly, like we had gotten good character development, and the sandcastle place wasn't done poorly, and it wasn't boring for 500 pages and, like, blah, 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 whatever. And also, if she had done it a little bit better, I would not have minded if the Darkling came back. I still might be okay with it depending on how it all goes, because I like the Darkling. I think he's a good villain. And I'm attracted to him. He's really cool. But it felt so much like she was going for a shock factor. And it felt like that's what everybody wanted. Like, that's what all the fans want. They want the Darkling back. And so here, we're going to give it to you. There you go. Like, I think it would have been so much cooler if, for some reason, the Darkling had been, like, reincarnated in, like, a woman's body, like Doctor Who. Like, that would have been so awesome. Imagine that plot twist. Why did we not have that? I don't know. Like, that would be something. If she had done that, automatically it would have been, like, a way better ending for me. I actually spoiled myself on the ending. I read the last page accidentally on purpose after about 2 chapters of reading because I wanted to know what page number I was reading to. And so I saw it and I, like, couldn't tell anybody about it because I was freaking out. Nobody had finished it. And I was like, the Darkling comes back. How does he come back? Like, the idea of him coming back was so exciting. It was terrifying, but I wanted it, you know? And then as events started playing out and we finally get to the end, I was just so let down. Like, I was expecting it to be better. Not only that, but Nikolai is just being a dumb bitch thinking he can control the Darkling to, like, whatever. I don't know. That was just stupid to me. Nikolai is so stupid, but that's a different point. So I just was, like, frustrated because it wasn't necessarily a bad idea. I think just the execution of it was not well done. And I'm just Yeah. Also, speaking of Nina being back in the ice court, which was like super trippy for me, I'm just listen. I know why she's doing it, and I do think the draw broom thing is interesting, and I think once we get the scene of her like finally getting him and being like, this is for Matthias and like this is for me and like whatever, like I think it's gonna be great. However, I just feel like Cass is hanging out in the slat, like he's like doing paperwork, and then all of a sudden he just is like, why do I have a feeling that Nina is doing something incredibly stupid? Interesting. And then he would like go back to his work. Like that's what I imagined when she went to the ice court. Like she made some mention where she was like, I'll just like break out of the wall. And I was like, oh no. No, Nina, no, honey, please don't. And then she was at the ice court and I was like, well, all right. We're back here, I guess. It's like, we're gonna have to go through another heist to get her out of the ice court or whatever. And we have to figure out a way to kill the Darkling again. Like, Alina is in Karamzin with Mal. And she's probably having the same feeling Kaz is. She's like, why do I feel like Nikolai is doing something incredibly stupid? And Mal's like, he does that a lot. And she's like, yeah, well, he better not come knocking because I'm in retirement. Speaking of Alina, we have a couple mentions of her. There's one mention of her and Mal being like this cute couple or whatever who like takes care of the orphanage. But the thing that really pissed me off, I think the most, was that there's really no mention of them. And I know they're not the center of this series, and I know she probably did that because she didn't want people to have to read the Grisha trilogy to get into this book or whatever, but it's just super annoying and weird to me because I feel like being in Nikolai's POV, being in Zoya's POV, they know Alina is still alive. Like, they mention the couple. They know they're out there. And yet, at any mention of Alina, it's always like, Alina, remember when she was alive? I can almost still hear her voice. And they don't even, like, talk about, like, explaining their feelings of, like, oh, Alina's, like, dead, but she's still here. Like, we just hung out 2 months ago or whatever. And I know it's been about 3 years since the whole Civil War thing happened, but I'm just saying if you were actually in somebody's head and actually in somebody's POV getting their internal monologue, you would know. Like, you would think about that. You would have feelings. It felt like they didn't have any feelings. I think that's my biggest issue here, is that I wanted more out of Nikolai and Zoya because I love them so much, and I didn't get that, and I feel like they're still strangers to me. And that's just super annoying and frustrating. So, here's the thing. Final thoughts, wrapping it up. I think the main issue with this book, aside from all those issues, is that Leigh kind of wrote it as a first book leading into a sequel. She didn't write it like Six of Crows, where Six of Crows felt like it could have been a standalone. It felt like, I mean, obviously not with the ending, but it felt like something that stood on its own, that it had the heist, and it was just like, it was its own thing, and it could stand on its own, and there were arcs in it that, like, it was a story. Whereas I feel like with King of Scars, it's only half of the story. Like, I can definitely tell that she wrote parts of it to, like, lead into the second book. Like, Hana and Nina, she didn't give us almost any development between them until, like, the very end, and you're like, oh, so they're gonna be gay. They're gonna get together. But you're forcing us to wait. And I know part of that, like, I get it. I can wait. I understand that. It's just, I felt like so much of this book was building up exposition and, like, introduction and just like background information about all of the shit that's going to go down in the next book. So I have a feeling the second book is going to be incredible. Like, I have high hopes it could still be like a 5-star book at this point. It just annoys me that I felt like she made sacrifices in this book so she could have a better second book. And that, like, you shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't need to do that if you're a good writer and if you're confident in your story and you're confident in your plot and whatever. So it was just like really frustrating to me because I know she can do better. Like, I just read all of her books. I know she can like do a good heist, and I know she can like have incredible character development. Like, Matthias deserved so much better. Also, can we talk about Trassel? Oh my god, when he came on the page, I just wanted to bawl. It was beautiful. Like, I know she can do it. I know she has the ability. I know she has great characters. Like, I know this. And so I think that's really why I'm so upset that this book, like, fell flat for me, because I know she can do so much better, and there's, like, nothing I can do about it. So anyways, I bet you weren't expecting that can of worms to open up. I certainly wasn't. I just have a lot of feelings, apparently. So please let me know in the comments your thoughts. I know a lot of people are, like, obsessed with it and really love it, and they gave it 5 stars, and, like, your opinion is whatever. Like, you can have that. Go ahead. But I also know there are a lot of people I've met who are disappointed like I am. So if you have thoughts, if you want to talk about it, now is the time. You got lots of free space down in the comments. Just like let it all out. I will comment back to you eventually. We can discuss. So hopefully the second book is better. I will be reviewing that, but I also have a reading vlog for this book. I don't know when it's going up, but you can go check that out if you want to see like my thoughts as they're happening. So, yes. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!